Please, everyone, welcome Dr. Simon Broughton, who is a TBD in South London for ST1 to ST5, and he's also a SIM lead in King's Hospital. And also I would say he's like more of an insider, right, Simon, when it comes to training and recruitment in the college. So I'm sure we will enjoy some of your tips, some of the insider tips when it comes to the application. So yeah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, everybody. Apologies for being so late. Work was, so I'm not TPD anymore. So I am the Royal College lead for recruitment though. So I am the kind of key person, I guess, in charge of recruitment from a clinical perspective for the country. And I'm also clinical director at King's now, which is why I've been busy for the last hour or so sorting out logistics. So rather than preparing a presentation and kind of going through the each question bit by bit, I thought it was just good to give you an overall guide to what we want when we're marking shortlisting forms. Because ultimately what you're after is for the shortlister to give you the point that you're trying to demonstrate. And you want to score the maximum number of points on shortlisting as possible to enable you then to be near the top to get an interview. Now, last year, this is probably not going to be good news to you, but it is the truth. Last year, we interviewed about 200 to 220 people for about 50 jobs. And this year, we're going to be interviewing significantly less because when you're interviewing 5 to 1 for each job, it's can be a bit, it's not a good use of anybody's time. So we're going to be aiming to be interviewing about 3 people for every job that's available. So we will be interviewing less people this year, which does mean the shortlisting is so important to get you further up the tree so that you are shortlisted and then interviewed. I'm happy to come back and talk about the interview at another time and to go through that, but let's focus on shortlisting. So the questions are very clear, and the marking schedule that the shortlisters have is very clear. So they can only give you the points that are on the marking schedule. And most of this is published on the Royal College website. So I really, really recommend that you go through everything on the Royal College website and try to decipher exactly what it is that they want from each question. Now, when you're shortlisting 50 or 60 forms, it's really exhausting. And so you need to be able to write down succinctly, and I'm going to use that word frequently today, be succinct in everything that you do and say on your form to make it easy for the person to mark. When people write really flowery, long sentences, I've loved pediatrics since I was a neonate myself. I knew when I was 3 months of age, I knew that I wanted to be a pediatrician, and it filled me with a warm heart desire. Honestly, it ends up making us want to vomit. So just, I am highly committed to a career in pediatrics and have known this before I went into medicine. Full stop. That's all you need to say. Anything more than that is superfluous, and it ends up put in the back up of the shortlister, which I know sounds crazy, but it's true because you've got to, you have to read so many of these. So be succinct, use bullet points if possible to, so if it's a question about clinical competencies that you can demonstrate with a view to being ready for ST4, then the key clinical competencies that we want to see are competencies that are consistent with the NLS, neonatal life support competencies, that you're able to safely manage a term baby who's born unexpectedly flat at birth, that you have the ability to carry out resuscitation, to be able to intubate the baby, and you've done so with or without kind of supervision. And and also we want to know about your advanced pediatric life support skills, that you're able to carry out a resuscitation of the standard pediatric kind of condition. So we would expect you to be able to manage, asthma, DKA, seizures, sepsis, bronchiolitis, and we'd expect you to have good knowledge of infection control issues, in particular around COVID. So all these points need to be made really succinctly. And the final thing we really want to see is safeguarding. So if you can tick the neonatal life support box, the advanced pediatric life support box, and the safeguarding box, you're going to score most marks in that domain. And it's just about saying them succinctly. It's perfectly reasonable to say that you've done 30 UVCs, 30 UACs, 50 intubations. That's fine because it's a fact. But just keep it as succinct and factual as possible to make it really easy for the marker to give the marks. I'll maybe pause there and see if anybody's got any questions about that.
That's brilliant. So we are now also like streaming the application guide just to remind people about it as well. Yeah. Are there any burning questions when it comes to the clinical skills and clinical skills basically? Please pop them in the chat, please.
And and if you've got a particular set of skills pertaining to a pediatric specialty, say if you've done pediatric renal and you've had some experience in dialysis, if you've done pediatric infectious diseases and have seen loads of COVID or loads of PIMS TS, obviously that goes in there as well. And it is that additional, that could be the thing that gets you the 5th point. With that kind of wide bit of experience, but it's about being succinct and demonstrating exactly what you've done in terms of competencies. There's not really the space in this question and answer for you to be able to demonstrate your reflection on those competencies. This is more about just demonstrating your clinical competencies.
I had a question, Simon, when it comes to the skills, please. One of the applicants was asking if we should provide some like personal examples of some patients. So just to give it more of depth.
So if you've got the space, then examples are always useful. But you might find that patient stories go better into the personal statement at the end. Because there isn't that much, I can't remember what the word count is that you have for this. It's like 500 words or something. It's not, there is a limit to the word count. So I would definitely make sure that you've demonstrated all the competencies that you've got. But if you can put patient stories into the personal statement at the end, I think that would be really powerful.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So what's the next domain? So the next domain is clinical experience and reflection. So this is more about reflecting on your experiences so far and how they've influenced you going forward. So you can see here that it says no relevant clinical experience. I mean, no one's going to write nothing in this box. Some experience, but with little direct relevance to pediatrics. So maybe the person's written about their experience in another career, like GP or something, which can be important, but just doesn't particularly help with a pediatric application. And then the next one is about some experience, but it's a bit unfocused, a bit superficial, not organized, and a bit of a, quite difficult to decipher exactly what it is that the person's saying. And then you're getting up towards the high scores. So some specific examples of experience demonstrating relevance to specialty and own development. This is the reflection box. And so this might be more where you put your patient stories in here. I saw a patient who came in with septic shock, who, on arrival, a 1-year-old had a pulse of 200 and a systolic blood pressure of 50, needed to be intubated, ventilated and resuscitated and given 60 mils per kilo of fluid. The child had a really good outcome, and the reason for the really good outcome was the excellent teamwork that we all demonstrated working together with good leadership and good management of the team. So this will be a good place to put your patient stories. And then the 4 marks goes where someone's given a range of experiences referring clearly to relevant career in pediatrics. So does that make sense? Put your patients into this box?
Yeah, it does make sense. And how to maximize your score when it comes to this, Simon? Especially with the last statement, it says to has led to own development. Should they put in like?
So this is the reflection box. So you want to talk about your experience, what your reflection was on that, and then how that reflection has led you to be more focused on a career in pediatrics and why. So, if someone, I mean, with ST34, everybody's going to have 2 or 3 years of pediatric experience to be able to pull upon. So they should all be able to give some good patient reflections and then link that to why they want to do pediatrics. Maybe a difficult safeguarding case that you saw handled really well by a consultant. And, the way that the consultant behaved and managed the family and dealt with the child with such an empathic style inspired you to want to do pediatrics. But it's about linking the patient story to the reflection to your desire to do a career in pediatrics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So what's the next box?
So the next one is about quality improvement and audits.
Yeah, so this is a box that's generally easy to do, but badly done. So not many people score maximum points here, because to score maximum points on the quality improvement project, you need to talk about what the reason for the quality improvement project was, how you carried it out, and to describe your PDSA cycle and who your team member was and what your exact role was within that team. And you then need to talk about reflection on the outcome of your first PDSA cycle, and then what interventions you carried out before running your second PDSA cycle and maybe third. So the thing that people write here is, I've carried out a quality improvement project on the management of urinary tract infections in the emergency department. Doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me the design of the quality improvement project. It doesn't tell me why they've done the quality improvement project. It doesn't tell me if it's linked to the NICE guideline, and it doesn't tell me about what change happened and how that change was sustained. So to score maximum points here, you need to give me what was the reason for the QIP, who was in the QIP team and what your role was. Describe the PDSA cycle to quite a high level of description, what the what the analysis demonstrated, and then what the plan for the next PDSA cycle was and how change was sustained. And if you do that, then you are going to be scoring 3 or 4 points here. And you see that to score 3, you need to have evidence of having designed, led, and presented a good quality audit / quality improvement project at a local meeting. And so you need to talk through the quality improvement project, talk about what the outcome was, and then talk about where it was recruited and how change was sustained, and maybe then how it led on to the development of the guideline. But to score 4 points, it's about that regular involvement. So you might say, I've done this quality improvement project 2 years ago, this one 1 year ago, this, and then describe them both and what the change that was and what change was sustained. So don't just give a list of, I've done quality improvement projects in the following areas. You'll score 0 points because it doesn't actually tell us anything. This is about having been involved, designed, led, and presented. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about an audit, then link the audit to whatever guideline or standard is that you're auditing against. So if it's like if it's an audit on the management of children under the age of 3 who present with a fever linked to the NICE guideline, that's fine. talk about the audit, how you carried it out, how many patients you audited, and what the findings were, and then what change was recommended subsequently following from the audit. But you need to give a lot of detail, and again, I go back to that word succinct, because a lot of people write a lot of stuff in this box and score very little for it because they haven't actually said anything. I know I'm being a bit harsh, but I just want people to really understand that it comes down to exactly what you write, because that's all that we can mark against.
No, I think that's very useful. We've had some questions when it comes to in this section, Simon. Some of the applicants haven't done a lot of audits, but they might have been involved like in quality improvement projects or in service revision. What's the best way to maximize their points here?
So I think describe your role within the project, and be perfectly honest. It's perfectly reasonable to say, in the hospital I work in, quality improvement is still something which is beginning to evolve. However, I've been involved in these projects and have actively engaged with the quality improvement team. And these are the projects that I've been involved with. This is how we did it. This is how we designed the project. My role was this, and this was what we found. And we then presented the findings. You probably will only score 2 points for saying that, but 2 points is a lot more than 0. Yeah. It's difficult because this is very much a it's a recruitment for especially at ST4. So it's a recruitment for doctors who are going to be able to work at ST3, ST4 level, and so it is something which which is standard practice within the UK, but is less well done outside of the UK, and we're aware of that. But it is necessary. It is nevertheless an essential skill if you're going to be a UK general doctor. I can't change that, unfortunately. It's something which is all Royal Colleges seek for in their appointment process, especially for ST3, ST4 entry. It's less important for ST1 because it can be trained, but for ST3, ST4, you expect some knowledge of this.
No, that's very useful. Thank you very much for that, Simon.
Yeah.
So the next one is about leadership and management, and it's always difficult.
Yeah, again, it's a difficult box if you're not working in the UK, because I think so the leadership and management doesn't just need to be from medicine. If you're involved in running and leading a book group, running and leading a football team or a cricket team or something, you will be able to demonstrate organizational skills, team management skills. So you can put those in anyway. It doesn't just need to be medicine. Obviously, it's easier to describe in medicine. And the kind of things described here, are once you get to 3 to 2 points, even they're quite hard to demonstrate. A lead role at undergraduate, junior doctor in local organization within university medical school department. That's only scoring you 2 points. Not many people score 3 or 4 points on this domain. So you could imagine that, lead role at undergraduate, junior doctor at a regional or national level, very few people have done that. And then the level above that in terms of presenting it at a national level, at national conference with I don't think I've ever given 4 points for this, but we need to have the option for giving 4 points for the people that have really encapsulated this as being one of the things that they're particularly good at. So, it's perfectly reasonable for you to aim to get 2 points on this box. That would probably be the average number of points that would be scored. And so talk about your role in running the rota, working with undergraduates and junior doctors, you know, and in particular focusing on what you're doing around patient safety. So if you've helped to organise a junior doctor rota, you know, and you focused on patient safety, then that will score highly within this domain. But this is a box that we are looking at because we think it, you know, it needs to be more generic than what it is. The wording for this has really come from National Health England. I see some questions have arrived and I can't read them, but if you could read out the questions, that would be fab.
Yes, I can, yes. So one question is about being a BMA representative. Is that national or regional? Would that be like scored national or regional?
So if you're a BMA representative, I think that would get you a national. I mean, it can be either, but certainly if you've worked with the BMA on behalf of junior doctors, you're definitely scoring 3 or 4 points, definitely.
Perfect. And there was another question when it comes to the leadership role is about undergraduate leadership roles, and will they be asked to provide any kind of evidence, like written evidence? Because it might be a bit tricky to get any evidence for any undergraduate activities.
I mean, if you say something, then you may need to back it up. But that can just be an email from, you know, someone who was in the department, just saying, you know, this doctor ran this role for this particular period of time. You wouldn't need a certificate, but probably just some. Yeah, it'd be, if you say something, you can then be asked for an interview. So, you know, my daughter's 17 and she says that she's a figure skater. Well, she's not really. She can ice skate, but she, you know, she's kind of over egging the custard in her university application. And so I'm kind of having that conversation with her about maybe you should just say you're interested in skating. And so, but instead she's selling it as being a figure skater. She's a good ice skater, don't get me wrong. But so if you are going to say something about then it would be worth just having, even if it's just an email from the consultant or from the department to say, yeah, I agree that this person helped with this during this period of time. And then if you're asked for it, you've got it. If you haven't got it, then just be honest about it. If you're asked for it, say, I haven't got the evidence. I'm really sorry. I think it's just about being honest. So any other questions about that, or should we move on to the next domain? So we've actually reduced significantly the academic points for scoring on these application forms. It used to be that academics scored twice, so potentially you got up to 8 points for academia. So we've reduced that a lot. So if you've been involved in research, you know, and you've been involved with and presented a paper at a regional or national conference, you're going to be scoring, you know, 3 points straight away. So it is, but you know, not many people are going to have published as first or last author or given an international presentation. So it's only really people that have been tied into research groups that would have done that. But it's not, you know, it's quite easy to get 2 or 3 points on this domain if you've done any aspects of research so far. But obviously we do need to reward people who have taken research as part of their progress so far. And again, just be succinct. You know, if you've published 5 papers, great, you're almost certainly going to score 4 points. But we, you know, if you haven't, just describe what you have done so far, and that will be used to add up the score. Any questions on that? If I'm involved in data collection for an ongoing study, how will I phrase it? I think you phrase it as that. You say, you know, so that would probably say, oh, I've got an echo. So that would be describe superficial involvement in a research project leading to a local presentation, or it may even be good description of presentation. But you need to talk about your involvement, what you've done, and what the project is. You know, it has to be, you would need to be able to demonstrate that you've done that as well. Any other questions on that?
No, I can't see further questions.
You designed a hypothetical research as part of a master's degree. So I think it does need to be a you know, a research project which is ongoing and is actually being carried out for children. Obviously, you know, you can say that you've got an interest in research and designing research projects, but I don't think a hypothetical research project would score that many points, I'm afraid. The next box after that is teaching.
Another question I had,
it's about presenting in journal clubs.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. If you've, you know, if you've sort of gone through a critical analysis of a paper, and in particular, if you've used a critical analysis presentation design, you know, you've talked through a particular, you know, structure for analyzing papers, and you've presented that at a journal club, and in particular, if it's then gone on to lead to a change in practice, then that's worth definitely worth putting in. It probably will only score you 1 or 2 points, but you know, again, it comes back to 1 or 2 points is a lot better than none. But yeah, so I think presenting in journal clubs, you know, would be a reasonable way to score 1 or 2 points, depending on how you word it. I would definitely link in the fact that you carried out a critical analysis. And if you haven't done, then I would make sure you do before the interview, do a proper critical analysis.
Sorry, can you hear me, Simon?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are clear. I think Khalid has got some signal issues. That's why he was checking.
Okay. So yeah, so put those things in. You will score something for it. Sorry, say again. I can hear somebody, but
no, I think it was a mic by mistake. You can move on, I think, to the teaching section. I think you are muted, Simon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry. So this is a bit more descriptive, and so you can describe your participation in some local teaching, or give some evidence of teaching that you've done. And the key thing about teaching is to score good points, is you need to describe that you've delivered a teaching session, you then collected feedback, you reflected on the feedback, and you changed subsequent teaching sessions on the basis of feedback. So, so if you want to score 3 or 4 points, you need to have been able to demonstrate that you've designed, you've led, and you've then collected feedback on teaching, which has then been delivered. So, yeah, and then if you can describe a range of different styles, if you talk about bedside teaching, small group lectures, webinars, talk about the use of Zoom, Teams-based teaching, you know, you're more likely to score good points here. But do definitely make sure you include, you know, I presented this to this group of medical students, collected the feedback at the end, assuming you did. This was the feedback, and I changed subsequent teaching sessions, and the teaching sessions carry on to evolve. So that's how you score good points here. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. Sorry for losing the signal before. A common question we had before, Simon, was if someone has designed a teaching rota, should they put it here or in the management bit?
I'd probably put it in both, because you may get points in both sections for that. So if it is, if you've designed a teaching rota that's implemented across the department, then it demonstrates your organizational managerial score as well as your commitment to teaching skills. So I think I would put it in both. And it may be that the same, so what often happens is that shortlisters shortlist 1 or 2 questions, but rather than shortlisting the entire form on everybody, they'll shortlist 1 or 2 questions on many people. So it may well be that you get 2 different shortlisters anyway. But if it fits into both boxes, I would put it in both.
Perfect. That's very useful. Thank you very much for that.
So then you come on to the final box, and this is the main box where people let themselves down, really. So again, it comes back to the writing needs to be succinct, and it needs to be focused, and it needs to be structured. You know, the maximum number of points are available here, and so you can talk about you know, what made you want to do pediatrics, why you want to do pediatrics, how you've demonstrated that so far in your career so far, what you want to achieve going forward, and what your plans are, and then linking that to your own personal attributes, possibly linking it to role models, who's inspired you to want to do pediatrics, and then why. So if you're going to reference a particular person who's inspired
Recording
you,
in progress.
talk about what their behaviors were that inspired you. So it's not very helpful if you say, my professor I find really inspirational. Doesn't tell anybody anything. But if you say, my professor is a true inspiration, you know, he listens to everybody, assimilates all of the information, makes sure everybody understands, includes everybody, everybody has a voice, and he helps to, you know, maintain patient safety by listening to parents and to the children, and, you know, taking on the team's opinions. That tells you why you think the person is an inspiration. So if you are going to talk about someone, talk about what their behaviors are and how they've inspired you and why. But what I would do is I would probably write this out, and maybe write it out with double the amount of words, and then condense it, and then get 3 or 4 people to read it before you submit it. So because this is really where the you know, you want to be scoring at least 4 points on this box, at least 4 points, and you should really be aiming to score 5 or 6, and you'll do that through being succinct and kind of being clear about what your commitment to pediatrics and why, and who your role models were, and what your kind of motivations are going forward. So any questions?
I think that's very useful. Some people were asking if you suggest any format when it comes to the statement. Some people would suggest a CAMP format, or any other a kind of template when you write your statement, or do you think it should be very like more of personal?
Yeah, I think I don't have a strict format, but what I would say is using fairly short paragraphs. Don't write, you know, 10-sentence paragraphs, because they're really difficult to read and to decipher all the content that is within the paragraph. Try to use, you know, even bullet points are reasonable to use. You know, you just want to make it really easy for the shortlister to kind of, you know, look at it, work out what is the point that this person's trying to make, how have they said it, what is the evidence that they're saying is kind of backing it up, or what their motivations are, and then they'll give you the point. But sometimes when people write really dense, long paragraphs, it can have brilliant information in it, but it can be really difficult to decipher it, especially if you've read 50 or 60 other forms already. I hope that's useful. I think I may have lost you. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi, how are you doing? we lost the others, or are they still with us?
Right. I think it's just a lot of technical glitch today.
Oh, no worries. I think it's amazing that you guys have set this up. I think it's truly amazing.
Oh,
and I'm very happy to carry on supporting it. And I'm happy to come back and give a session on the interview as well, if that's nearer the time.
That's very useful, Simon. I mean, you've been truly amazing and truly really useful to, and I think everyone would feel the same when it comes to your guidance today.
Well, we just need to get as many
and thank you.
In as possible. So best of luck, everybody. I really wish you the best of luck, and look forward to seeing your applications.
Thank you for your time, Simon. Thank you.
Chat.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
خالد.
ايوه I can hear you. Sorry.
لا بس ده اشوف اذا الباقيين عندهم، اذا في زول عنده حاجه ثانيه ولا حاجه قبل ما نقفل السيشن.
تمام. معلش يا شباب على التكنيكال جليتش الليله، كان في كميه من المرقه والدخله، لكن انا افتكر it was as smooth as it can be. شايف منذر رافع يده، ممكن منذر تتفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
شكرا جزيلا على السيشن الظريف ده، يعني الناس كانت محتاجة فعلا. أنا بس عايز أسأل، يعني أنا شفت سيشن لدكتور هاني قبل فترة في يوتيوب يعني عن نفس الحاجة. هو ما في تضارب، لكن يعني مثلا هو قال استخدم bullet points وكده، يعني في الورد بسيطة ما بتكفي إنه أنت تكتب examples وبرضه تكتب الحاجات. في ناس فينا يعني الاكسبيرينس ما بتكفي إنه أنت تكتب كل مثلا الكلينيكال سكيلز حقتك وتدي examples برضه عليها يعني. فالأولوية لشنو يعني؟ أنا مرات بتخلي حاجات برا إنه هو يحاول يطلعها من الستوري يعني، لكن إذا هم حيكونوا very busy ودايرين حاجات واضحة بس 1 2 3 it makes it difficult إنه أنت تكتب ستوري. وهل الستوري دي حتخليهم بالعكس يعني يمروا بس في الهنا حقك يعني في الابليكيشن حقك ويمشوا يعني، ولا؟
كلامك طبعا very كلامك is relatable يا منذر، طبعا بالذات عندهم experience طويلة بيحاولوا ان هم طبعا يدخلوا اكثر حاجات ممكنة في الابليكيشن بتاعهم. انا افتكر انك انت الأولوية إنك أنت تكون حاجاتك واضحة، الأولوية إنك تكتب points not to sound very boring at the same time، لكن ما تكون بس إنك أنت بس عبارة عن بترص في الحاجات أكتر من إنك أنت تديها زي ما يقولوا بعد تاني زيادة. الحكاية بتاعت الستوريز دي في الحتة بتاعت الكلينيكال experience is more relatable، لكن ما بتتكتب في حته بتاعت السكيلز، ما بتتكتب في حته مثلا بتاعت الريسيرش، ولا ما بتتكتب في الحته بتاعت التيتشنج. فهي اكتر حاجه في الكلينيكال اكسبيرينس اند ريفليكشن. افتكر الكلام بتاع سايمون الليله ان الناس ان هم حيعدوا على ابلكيشنز كثيره ما كان بالنسبه لنا معروف. دي معلومه جديده ان هم حيكونوا very strict on shortlisting السنه دي. فأنا I think to maximize the point أنت you need to be very to make it like an easy read if that makes sense. إنه اللي بيقرأ الكلام ما يعاني إنه يطلع الكلام من بين السطور. فأفتكر أهم شيء يتعمل في الابليكيشن السنة دي إنه على حسب كلام سايمون الليلة إنه الناس تكون واضحة، تكون دايركت، وتدي أمثلة، لكن يعني ما تكتر من الحشو، باختصار كده. هاني رايك
ممكن اضيف حاجه هنا؟ انا داير اقول لك حاجه، بس انت ذكرت حته مهمه، الحته بتاعت البوليت بوينتس، بس داير اقول لك حاجه تكنيكال. الناس بتاعين الاوريال ديل في حته كاتبين لنا في الابلكيشن جايدنس انه كل البوليت بوينتس والماركينجز والحاجات اللي انت بتستخدمها، لو عملت نجمه، لو عملت شنو، ده كله will disappear once they download your application. هم طبعا ما حيدوا الابلكيشن بشكله الحالي ده طوالي كده للمصححين، بيعملوا له داونلود وكله بيبي داونلود ان وان شيت كويس، او PDF فورمات او وات ايفر الطريقه اللي هم يعملوا بيها وبيدوا لهم. هم they clearly stated انه كل البوليت بوينتس will disappear. فانت عشان كده تخلي الجمله بتاعتك واضحه، الحاجه الوحيده اللي حتقعد هي الفول ستوب at the end of the sentence. انا عشان كده حتى قدر الابلكيشنز اللي شفتها كنت بقول للناس ما تستعملوا الكوماز والحاجات دي at the end of the sentence. You have to use الفول ستوب، لان دي الحاجه الوحيده اللي حتفضل وانس داونلود الابلكيشن. انا ما عارف دي حاجه تكنيكال عندهم في الاوريال، وانس انه نزلوا الحياه حاجه كلها عندهم بتختفي البوليت بوينتس وبتختفي. فلو عملتها في شكل بوليت بوينتس بشكل جمل ما مترابطه مع بعض، الزول بيحس بانه يعني زي اللي بيتعثر في الحجار كده، عرفت انه قام له من جمله فجاه قام له في جمله ثانيه وفجاه قام له في جمله ثالثه من غير ما يكون في رابط واضح لوجيكال بيناتهم. فتراي بس تو ميك ات بالطريقه دي. لكن زي ما قال خالد بس اختار الحاجات المحطات الكبيره في حياتك لو انت عندك اكسبيرينس طويله وخدتها ما في حل، ما هو في الاخر يعني وي هاف تو مانج في الوير ليميت ال 30 مليون ده، بس تسوي شنو؟
في تاني منه رافع يده عشان قبل ما نختم. في مها، تفضل يا مها.
اوكي
خالد قبل مها can you stop the live on Facebook now from your side? Yes. خش يا مها معلش.
الو السلام عليكم. معلش اول حاجه شكرا جزيلا على السيشن الجميل ده، وشكرا لك هاني سمعت اللكشه بتاعتك في اليوتيوب.